Welcome to the second video in the Building Internal Developer Platforms ebook series. Today we're going to learn about vCluster. So let's go ahead and jump into some slides, learn about what vCluster is and how it can make your internal developer platform even better. All right, in this video, we're going to cover chapter 2. So we're going to talk about understanding what vCluster is. So what is vCluster? What are some of the core features? What are the advantages of using vCluster? vCluster in action, and then the conclusion, where we'll talk about what we're going to do in the next video. All right, so what is vCluster? So vCluster is a virtual Kubernetes cluster technology that enables fully functional Kubernetes clusters inside of an existing cluster. So basically, it's Kubernetes in Kubernetes. So it addresses some common challenges: multi-tenancy, high costs, complex multi-cluster management, and resource inefficiency. We'll touch on each of these as we get further along in the slides, but basically if you're looking at doing multi-tenancy, vCluster is great. If you're looking at lowering costs, it's awesome because you reduce the amount of physical clusters you have. And if you want to reduce the multi-cluster management, what you can do is run multiple clusters in a single cluster and then share up CRDs from the base cluster to your virtual clusters. And then resource inefficiency, we're just packing more on the cluster. So vCluster appears and behaves like a standard Kubernetes cluster, but it's lighter and more flexible. So what are some of the core features? So lightweight architecture. It doesn't require an additional etcd instance for each cluster, which can save you a lot of space and keep you from having to configure your own etcd for each one. You can run it in SQLite and other databases. It has full Kubernetes API compatibility. So vCluster provides a complete Kubernetes API that behaves exactly like a standalone Kubernetes cluster. It has isolation and security. So each vCluster instance maintains strict isolation from others. It's got scalability and elasticity. So create, scale, or delete clusters within seconds. So instead of waiting for EKS or something like that to come up, go ahead and create this, and then within 60 seconds, your developer is going to have access to a Kubernetes cluster. Advantages of using vCluster: operational efficiency, reduce overall physical clusters, lower operational costs, teams manage fewer clusters with more applications on them. So being able to reduce the amount of physical clusters that you're running makes it a lot easier for your platform team to actually be able to manage these clusters and give access to these clusters without having to give permissions within AWS and all these other things. Instead, you're just creating a virtual cluster and then handing off a kube config and then giving users access. So development agility. Developers can spin up their own vCluster for testing, development, or production. So they can reduce IT requests for new physical clusters by using these virtual clusters. And to speed up the time from the development to deployment, because they're creating a cluster within seconds instead of waiting, 30 to 45 minutes or longer for that to actually get configured in AWS or GKE or something like that. So resource optimization. Optimize usage by packing more on a single cluster. And you can use multi-tenancy to increase cluster utilization. Each of these is one of the main advantages of vCluster, but there's more, right? So this is kind of what you're looking at if you're looking for developer agency and being able to create a developer platform that gives the developer the power to do what they need to do. So vCluster in action. So basically, to set up and configure vCluster, you have multiple ways to deploy it. So you can deploy it with the vCluster CLI, you can deploy it with Helm, you can deploy it with Argo, you can deploy it with Terraform and Cluster API. And it integrates with other DevOps tools, right? So integrate with your DevOps tools that are already deploying on Kubernetes. It's the ideal platform for continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. So if you're already using Kubernetes, you're just changing your kube config and pointing to the virtual cluster and then deploying the same things into a virtual cluster. And they still run on the base cluster. So it's basically just using Kubernetes in Kubernetes, but giving you a way to enhance the multi-tenancy and the ability to create ephemeral environments and any other of the use cases that you're looking to try out. So conclusion. So basically what we covered today is vCluster is lightweight, has robust security, and has compatibility features. It increases your operational efficiency, development agility, and resource optimization on Kubernetes with vCluster. And then it's an excellent choice for enhancing your developer platform. So up next, what we're going to do is we're going to set up vCluster. So we're going to the command line. We're going to integrate essential DevOps tools with vCluster as well. So check out the next video. In the next video, like I said, we're going to go to the command line. If you want to jump ahead, download the ebook. It's in the description. You can go ahead and check out the next section and the next couple of sections and try it out before the next videos come out. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, join Slack, like the video, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or comment and let us know what kind of videos that you would like to see about vCluster or building internal development platforms. What kind of issues are you running into with Kubernetes?